really reflected about what had meaning and what was truly important. And it wasn't about just grinding, getting to the next level, getting the award at the banquet every summer for the firm. It was about designing my life and the way I wanted it to be, and have that freedom to be there for my kids through a really difficult time. I used to do these workshops for the firm I was working at a time that I developed. It was called the Difference Maker Institute. We had my wife Amy had been struggling kind of with some stomach pain for a while, and I had all these people in front of me, and the actual topic of that particular workshop was developing a compelling vision for your life. And her best friend texted me and said, "Hey, I think Amy's going to go to the doctor. You should go." And we ended up eventually going to the doctor. And so this compelling vision that I had for my life completely was upended. We did some tests, they did some scans, and we waited for 2 days to find out what it was.
Brian, thanks, brother, for spending some time with us here on a Friday. I appreciate it, man.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
I'm excited about this episode because we met at an event in Minneapolis, which was a lot of fun, but your energy and just how magnetic you were came right across. It was jumping off your suit, basically. I'd like to say when I shook your hand. And so I'm really excited to be able to chop this up today because your background in wealth management as an entrepreneur and running a shop, you're also an author who's written an incredible book, which we'll talk about and make sure that is part of our show notes for people to be able to get. But people look at you, they would see this man of success. He's stoic. He's put things together. But there's a big part of your story that they'd probably be missing. And that's where I want to start. The thing that they don't know about Brian and his journey and what kind of led you to starting the practice, also writing the book and what inspired it, man. So let's start there.
Yeah. Well, my dad retired when he was 50. And I remember he told me a lot of stories where he'd see older individuals, can barely walk. They're walking down the beach. They're just not in very good shape. And that is what actually inspired an idea I had it was actually in high school. I wrote a business plan, and it was called Life Track was the name of the company. And it was integrating wealth management with health. And my idea way back then was to give people some kind of incentive, like a discount if they met their health goals on their wealth management fees. I haven't gotten to that point yet where I've integrated that into my practice, but that's what inspired me to eventually write a book, and a lot of other things inspired it. But I see it all the time in this business where people build up an enormous amount of wealth, but they don't have the health to really be able to enjoy that wealth that they built up. So the book was inspired by just living this richer life of experiences and more meaning, but also being healthy along that journey so that you're able to enjoy your wealth and live that richer life that you wanted to. And my dad retired at 50. He was healthy for a long time. He eventually battled prostate cancer and eventually passed away, but he lived 30 years in retirement. And I want all my clients to be able to enjoy that richer life. And that doesn't just mean money and health. We're talking about more meaning, richer experiences, richer relationships, all the things. So that's really what kind of inspired the book, and it inspired me to eventually go off on my own and start my own wealth management practice. I loved where I was. I had a big career for a long time at a well-known brokerage firm, but it just, it kind of got to this point where I'm like, I want a different experience. I want to create a different experience for my clients and slow down a little bit, because a lot of things happened in my life where I really reflected about what had meaning and what was truly important. And it wasn't about just grinding, getting to the next level, getting the award at the banquet every summer for the firm. It was about designing my life and the way I wanted it to be, and have that freedom to be there for my kids through a really difficult time. And also just be able to build something that I can call my own. So that's what led me to start my own firm 3 years ago. And I've never been more like having that feeling like I'm living my truth, that North Star that that feeling that you have that you're doing the right thing and following the right path.
There's something you shared with me in one of our first conversations that evening that we met there in Minneapolis, about the inspiration behind the book, and you talked about your late wife, and what really inspired me and kind of just yelled at me in a silent way that I have to have this conversation with you, was this story of resilience and you
Yeah.
going through the unthinkable, like one of the worst types of grief that
Yeah.
there is, but also having to continue on because you have other people counting on you. And
Yeah.
I think people really don't, it can't be overstated how much strength and how much light from above, if you're religious or a person of faith, that you have to kind of count on, and then having good people around you, and how difficult that was. But I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because that, that's what our whole show is about, is resilience and beating the odds. You're back against the wall. So take me back to that time and what happened, and also, how it's defined you going forward.
Yeah, I always had this, I read a lot of self-development books. I read books on resilience and personal growth. And I used to do these workshops for the firm I was working at a time that I developed. It was called the Difference Maker Institute. I don't know why I came up with that term, but I would do these quarterly seminars. And I was actually doing my third one for a group of about 50 advisors. And we had my wife Amy had been struggling kind of with some stomach pain for a while, and I had all these people in front of me, and the actual topic of that particular workshop was developing a compelling vision for your life, a 10-year vision, what you wanted your life to look like, and writing it out in the story that ignites you and fires you up. And she, her best friend, texted me and said, "Hey, I think Amy's going to go to the doctor. You should go." And I said, "Well, I have 50 people in a room, and I can't leave." And we ended up eventually going to the doctor. And so this compelling vision that I had for my life completely was upended. We did some tests, they did some scans, and we waited for 2 days to find out what it was. And we got the call from this doctor, and we both were on the phone. She was holding the phone up to my ear, and this doctor said that my wife had pancreatic cancer. And it was like we just both started shaking, and we held each other tight, and we knew, we all know when you hear that word pancreatic cancer with all the other people that have had it, and then your mind you go down that rabbit hole, right, of Google searches and the 3% survival rate. And I just thought she was 36 at the time. I thought, it's 4% survival rate, but she can be a statistic of one. She's young. Most people that get pancreatic cancer are older. So it was a battle, man. It was, we posted on, Carrying Bridge every day on her journey. And then we went into to a meeting right before Christmas to see if we shrunk the tumor enough to do this procedure called the Whipple procedure, where they take out the pancreas. And I could tell the white coats coming in. There was like 5 doctors in white coats that came in. I could tell right away from that energy that we weren't going to get good news. So we found out that the tumor didn't shrink enough, and that we'd probably be celebrating our last Christmas. And we celebrated that Christmas like it was definitely our last. We had the blast with all of our family, and then we went down in February, and things started getting for a procedure called a celiac block to get rid of some of the pain, and we never came home. So I was 3 weeks in the hospital, and had to come home and tell the kids that mommy wasn't coming home. It was it was a really tough time. I have a lot of memories burnt in my mind in that hospital, but I knew I had to be strong. I knew I had to be okay, because I had 2 kids to take care of and a stepdaughter. And I went through some dark times. I was angry at God. I was all the things. And then one day I decided to finally go to church. And when you go to church, that day you decide to go to church and the message seems like it's just for you, that was the one. He said, you need to use this before he removes this. And the hairs on my arms stood up. And I knew I needed to do something to make a difference, because my wife was a veteran. And we thought during her fight, she voiced her opinion that the burn pits were maybe the cause of her cancer. And I knew I needed to continue on something. So the next day I started the Amy Muller Foundation. We helped other veterans exposed to burn pits with pancreatic cancer and also raised awareness. And eventually Senator Klobuchar got involved. And we brought a bill all the way to the White House called the Helping Veterans Exposed to Burn Pit Act. Now, any veteran that's been exposed to burn pits, has been in Iraq, Afghanistan, and they have any of these lists of cancers or respiratory diseases, no questions asked, they're going to get full VA benefits. So her story blew up here in Minnesota before she died and then after. And her life will always echo that change, and her legacy will always be there. They still write about her when they reference burn pits. So, it was a tough time, but I put my pain into purpose. I used that pain, like that church sermon said, before God removed it, and I made sure that we made an impact somehow in some way, as small as it was, but then it turned into something really big, something that my kids can always look at as something to be proud of their mom's legacy and story.
Well, and listen, God bless your wife in that, in that stretch or that battle. Obviously way too young, but more so, for her service to this country as a vet.
Yeah.
And for you, man, like to actually not look at this as something that was happening to you, but actually for you, as that old, I think it's a Tony Robbins saying, but like the hairs on my arms, and I have a lot of them, Indian, stood up as you said that same phrase, like of what the pastor said that day. You need to use this before he can remove this. Yeah. And I think for everybody listening, everyone's going through something,
right?
And to different degrees. And whatever it is that you're going through, that's the hardest thing, right? It's all relative. For you, it's the hardest thing. But for what Brian just shared, because victim mentality is very prevalent today in everything, guys. Like it's easy to blame the universe, blame this, blame that for why things are, and it's okay. It's human to feel that way initially, but then to get out of your own way and start to march forward and use this before he removes this. So powerful. That's the mic drop moment from the show, man. And it was a beautiful thing. But I mean, kudos to you for seeing that. And what would you share with people if you're talking right through to the screen now, someone going through a tough time or something even similar to what you have dealt with?
I think, the biggest thing I think with especially with grief and any type of thing in your life, is just dealing with it and sitting with it for a while, doing what you need to do to heal. And whether it's journaling, for me, it was writing songs, finding an outlet to deal with it instead of just sweeping it under the rugs and trying to go on with life and get busy again and not really, deal with what you're going through. I think journaling is super powerful, meditating. But for me, it was songwriting. I wrote probably 50 songs during that first year about grief, love, loss, hope, all the things, and recorded them. They're all on a YouTube kind of playlist that I've sent to people that have lost somebody. But just, I think dealing with it, whether you need to go to therapy. I went to therapy. Did EMDR therapy, which is to get rid of some of the trauma and things that were burned in my mind. Like, just attacking whatever is in your life and figuring out how to get through it. They always say you're either going through something or you're growing through something. I chose to grow through it, go back reading books on resilience and self-development things. And I had periods where I wasn't going the right way.
You're human.
Yeah, man. I was drinking a little bit, and I was like, one day I just said, nope, I need to be here for my kids. I need to live a long, healthy life and deal with this in the way I should. But I think, anyone going through something, you need to figure out a way to grow through it, learn from it, journal, whatever you need to do to reflect on it and sit with it for a while, and then get on with life and, become a better person. Wow. And a stronger person and a more resilient person, like you talked about.
Well said, Brian. Great lesson there. And, again, everyone listening, please take note of it for what you're going through and whatever it is. I feel you and I'm with you and I empathize, but I think your lesson there, if you can cut from what just Brian shared, is going to help guide you. Brian, what, just to kind of round out this story, when it came to grief and for you, what was harder, dealing with your own personal grief after that time or having to be there for your kids? Or was it equal or different?
Yeah, my kids were only like 4 and 6 at the time. So it was, I didn't know what to do for them. All I knew is I needed to be there for them as much as I could, and could have hired a nanny and got back to business and just and went on with life. But eventually, I got them involved in a program at their school. It's called the Growing Through Grief program. But
Okay.
I was dealing with my own grief, and I knew if I was dealing with it in the right way, that they naturally would too. But eventually knew I needed to get them some help as well. I was going to therapy. They should be going to therapy too. And so Growing Through Grief goes into the school, and they're with other kids that have lost parents or sisters or brothers, and they go make it comfortable for them. And so that really helped them a lot. And I really got to know the Growing Through Grief program. And in fact, I think I had talked to you briefly about this last time. One of the most heartbreaking things was the first. I started writing songs again and recording. But one night, my son whispered in my ear. They used to sleep in my bed with me for a long time. I would sleep at the middle. I never got a whole lot of sleep. They'd be on each side of me. But one day, my son woke up and he said, "Daddy, I had a dream last night." He says, "What if I could build a ladder to the sky so I could go see mommy whenever I wanted to?" And it was like, it just killed me. I went in the bathroom and was crying. The kids are knocking on the door. "Dad, are you okay? Are you okay?" And I kind of composed myself, went downstairs, made the kids pancakes, got them off to school. And I sat down and wrote this song literally in 15 minutes. It just came out of me like it was coming from somewhere else. And it was called Ladder to the Sky. And if you ever want a good cry, look up Ladder to the Sky by Brian David, and you'll it'll be pretty tough for you not to really well. But we eventually used that song to raise money for the Growing Through Grief program, just to try to put a little bit of something into it, some purpose behind it. And we ended up raising a ton of money for the Growing Through Grief program with that song. So it was really, something my son is really proud of, that song, and it'll always be the thing that I hold on to of what my son was thinking. Think about a boy who's 6 years old and he thinks something like that or dreams something like that. Like, that's brilliant. Like, that would be awesome if we could build a ladder to the sky. And I told him after I recorded this song, I said, you can build a ladder to the sky in your mind. Like, you can talk to your mom whenever you want to. You can pray. You can just sit in your room and just have a conversation with her. So I think that was kind of a helpful grieving thing for us as a family, writing that song. And then I put out a bunch of other songs about grief and love and loss that just I knew I needed to put out there. And I'm doing it again right now. I think I've written 10 songs in the last week after my dad passed away. And the floodgates have just opened up, where that's how I deal with things and that's how I get things out. And I think that's what anybody needs to do, is find that outlet when they're going through a tough time, grieving, whatever it is.
Yeah, very healthy perspective to share. Let's bring this more into your mission, because
Yeah.
health and wealth are very important to you. I mean, that's the whole premise of your book, and it's a tenet of your business and your practice, which is a very successful and powerful one there out in Minnesota. But let's talk a little bit more about that. I know we opened talking about that connection between health and wealth, but it's a huge gap, and I don't hear anybody else. I'm in the financial literacy space. I deal in finance on, as it pertains to real estate, but nobody talks about the health component. And it's one of the biggest issues facing this country, again, because we are a generally unhealthy country. We're exposed to so much stuff. There's no explanation for the rise in cancer cases amongst children, young, healthy adults like your wife. Although I think you guys were onto something in what you figured out with her exposure, and the connection to burn pits. But let's talk more about health and wealth, because I think for everyone in our audience, they want both. They should be wanting both, and they go together. I don't think you have one without the other. So let's expand on them.
Yeah, a ways back, I decided to get my health and life coach certification. So a lot of the principles of what a health coach would help you with are in the book. There's the top 10, life decisions to live a richer life, and the top 10 health decisions to live a richer life, and also the top wealth decisions. But when it comes down to health, it's all about, creating an environment that make it easy for you to be healthy. For instance, put your gym shoes and your workout clothes next to your bed before you go to bed. Drink 2 glasses of water when you wake up in the morning. Go through your pantry, put all the healthy things at eye level. Creating an environment and you know, starting that helps you start to create a new identity of a healthy person. Most people don't create permanent change. They, in their health, they'll work out, the New Year's resolutions. They'll go to the gym for 6 weeks and then they'll go back to their old ways because they didn't change their environment. They didn't make it easy for them to continue to do it, and they didn't change their identity. So a big part of the chapter in the book is making sure you create this new identity of a health conscious person, rather than someone that just says, well, I'm going to work out or I'm going to try to eat healthy. You start to research ways to be healthier. You start to research new recipes and you start to incorporate things, and eventually it becomes part of who you are, and you create this permanent change and you're a different person. Most people, if they're into health or fitness or into self-development, won't recognize the person they are a year from now because they've now become a different, version of themselves. They're still the same person. They still have the same ID and the passport and the same picture, but they are a different person inside. And so what I hope to do with Momentous Wealth Advisors is integrate health, some type of health coaching into the practice to help people really identify some of the things that they haven't been able to overcome in the past to become healthy. Because a lot of people have tried diets, they've tried to change, they've tried workouts, but they just go back to their old ways. And if I can help people identify the things that have been these obstacles in their way and help them on that journey to become healthier, as well as helping them with their finances and life goals, relationship stuff. I'm not I'm not going to be a therapist for clients, but I think a richer life is all about health, wealth, and rich experiences and rich relationships. I don't have all the answers. I don't live a perfect life, certainly not, but I'm very intentional about the life I'm trying to build and the life I want my clients to be able to build as well.
Well, I think, the gift you have, and I'm sure you've heard this, but again, it's why I connected with you like instantly, is this ability to kind of see people, and you're very inquisitive and you're a real human. You're clearly very vulnerable and comfortable in your own skin. And I think especially around topics like health and money, which ordinarily put up walls of insecurity for people.
Yeah.
And you're able to kind of bring that out. Like I feel that just in this conversation here, and then I've been conversations that we've had offline, which I think is paramount. Like for anyone looking to select someone to work with to help you with future planning, wealth management, just being smarter about money in general, I think that's a big trait. I mean, success and track records are important, but like, can you have a real conversation with this person? Can you level with them? Can they see you as a human and you see them as one? And Brian's definitely that guy. Brian, financial literacy, in my opinion, is one of the greatest or most threatening crises right now facing people. Like we have lifestyle trap, and I'm here in San Francisco in a city where people get washed out in a year. They come here with great dreams and aspirations, fresh out of school. They get a good paying job and they get caught up in the lifestyle trap of going out to eat all the time, and you will outspend your time in the city very quickly. Some of them gone in a year, like where they have to move way out of the city or give up the job, move back home with mom and dad because it just got so bad. So I see it all the time. And it's been that story for the 20 years I've lived here. It hasn't really changed. What do you see outside of that as the way that people can avoid falling into this? Because there's a lot of young professionals that listen to this podcast and they're always looking for good sound advice. Obviously, it's a bottomless pit on YouTube and the internet of getting great financial advice here, and some not so great. But what do you suggest? What do you talk to 20-something-year-olds that are just getting started in life and want them to avoid certain mistakes?
Yeah, I think, I just did a recent podcast episode of the 10 principles my dad followed to retire at age 50. And, some of them are pretty extreme, but, obviously the whole idea of paying yourself first. It's the oldest one in the book. Living below your means, I think, and you're in the mortgage space, you see it all the time where people, they'll buy as much house as they can afford. My dad, one of his first principles, and I didn't know this until I interviewed him before he passed away, he put 50% down on his first house and he waited until it was paid off to move to a new one. And that obviously is tough to do today, but it was tough to do back then.
Totally.
He was making an average income and he did it. whatever the mortgage company says you can afford, try to I know it's hard because you go into that beautiful shiny house and you see all the things that you want, you think you want or think you need, but the only way you can live below your means is to not have a mortgage that is, you know, all the way more than you can afford. Paying yourself first, obviously, is always going to be one of those old adages that always goes along. The other thing my dad did, and this is probably pretty extreme too, is he never had a car payment. The average car payment today is like $700 a month.
Yep.
Think about what that could do for you. Now, that's also very difficult today, especially if you get sucked into the lifestyle trap of wanting the next new shiny car. But you don't need to have the top of the line car that gets you from point A to point B. So live below your means. Don't, invest in things that depreciate in value, like expensive cars. Buy, quality investments. Don't pick individual stocks until you have a certain amount of money invested. Stick with low cost index funds, diversify. Don't, chase stock tips from an uncle or a buddy. Stick with a plan, have a financial plan early in life. Put away 10, 15, 20, 30% of your income if possible, by paying yourself first. And you're going to be able to have freedom. You're going to be able to have choices rather than constantly getting stuck in this lifestyle trap of increasing your lifestyle every time you get a raise. Every time you get a raise, put more into investments.
Mm-hmm. And stay aggressive with that. I love that you talked about the $700 car payment, because I did a piece of content on it not that long ago that eliminating your $700 car payment, I use the exact same number, actually increases your buying power by, $80,000 or $90,000 depending on.
For your
And
home, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
because that's weighing you down from a qualification standpoint. And for a lot of
yeah,
people that get outpriced in the market, that difference in price point here in the Bay Area of 70 or 80,000 could mean the difference between getting into a much better neighborhood, a safer neighborhood, one that's closer to the school that your kids are going to go to, or one that you see yourself staying in for 10 plus years, as opposed to we'll be there a short period of time and then we're going to use it as a stepping stone to get out of there. But it's really sound advice because, there's a lot of conflicting bits of information and guidance or teachings, some of it misguided, when it comes to money.
yeah,
Like, who cares? Enjoy the car, which I'm all for people enjoying their life, right? We're only here once,
right.
and maybe it's not about always buying the appreciating asset. Sometimes like, I just want that car because I want it. Okay, well,
Yeah,
there's probably other things that were well in line for you, financially speaking, in terms of your financial health and what you've been invested in. But for everyone listening, like what Brian stated there is so powerful, and this sound advice from his dad. And look, success leaves clues. His father retired at 50. I'm going to say
yeah,
that again. His father retired at 50. Nobody says that
no,
these days. Nobody does. So clearly he did some things right.
yeah,
And you don't have to take every bit of advice here, but I
no,
think at the core, there's a lot of things in here that Brian just stated that are absolute gold. I mean, they were great reminders even for myself.
yeah,
So I'm gonna re-listen to that as well, because
yeah,
having, putting things away, and probably the most powerful bit there in terms of when you get a raise, don't raise your lifestyle, invest more, put more
right,
away. And look, Brian, you see the numbers because you work with clients on all ends of the spectrum.
yeah,
Doing this and taking that, I don't even want to call it a sacrifice. It's just being responsible and having foresight and being forward
right,
thinking, investing in your future self. Doing this in your 20s makes your 40s and 50s categorically different from everyone that you're
right,
around. Like if you look at your buddies that you're friends with right now that are in their 20s and you adhere to some of these principles that Brian's talking about, and your buddies don't, in 10, 15, 20 years, you may not even be friends. And I don't
right,
mean that in a bad way. It's just
yeah,
because they're just when people say we grew apart, like in
right,
marriage or in
yeah,
friendship,
right,
you
right,
literally will grow apart.
yeah.
And so I can't overstate that enough. Like that is so powerful what Brian just stated.
Yeah, my dad used to always say, if you're going to be successful and make a good income, you better have something to show for it. You
Oh,
know,
so good.
I've known people that they make good income, they didn't do the things they needed to do, and all of a sudden that income goes away. They have no savings, and they haven't gotten themselves in a position to really grow their wealth. My dad was just very, very intentional. Every dollar was like a soldier to him, working for his future, and he was a forward thinker. He started the fire movement before the fire movement was even around. The financial independence, retire early movement. He did the things. He clipped coupons. He never had a drink at a bar. Do you think how much money would I save if I did drink a drink at a bar. He did things
Isn't that the truth?
differently. Some of the things are a little extreme, and probably, I like to go out and have a drink at a bar, but last time I went, it was $25 for a vodka and soda. That's a lot of money today.
Yeah.
So enjoy your life. Balancing living for today and saving for the future is tough, but you have to do it. If you want financial security and financial freedom, you have to be smart and make those intentional choices every
Yeah.
day. So,
Right. One thing I'm noticing in society, I'm seeing it because I look at people's financials all the time, just like you do. But we have the opposite end of the spectrum, a little bit of an epidemic, if you want to call it that, with older people not being able to retire. And they're having to go back to work, either for benefits or you'll see them working. And for some, I think it's a great idea because it keeps them busy. You want to stay
yeah,
active, you want to stay busy, you want to be stimulated. And I think that's a very healthy thing, right?
yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, I need my dad or mom to get a job because they're on my case all the time. Like I want them to do something. But for those that are doing it because it's not a choice, but it's an absolute necessity, like what went wrong? I mean, besides the obvious, what went wrong to kind of land people in that spot, and how can people make sure they avoid it? Because we're seeing it all over the place.
Yeah, I see sometimes where people, I'll ask someone, well, are you maxing out your 401k? They're like, oh yeah, I'm maxing it out. And what I find out is that they're just putting in the amount that they need to get a match. So making sure that you go beyond the match. You can put in a lot of money in a 401k today, whether you put in a pre-tax or the Roth 401k option. And there's also an after-tax option in some plans that can allow you to put more money away and convert it to a Roth. It's called a mega backdoor Roth. But making sure that you're getting the full match, number one, but also going beyond that, looking into investing in a taxable investment account that's liquid. If you do want to retire early, you need to have something to bridge the gap. My dad was very focused on maxing out everything, maxed out his 401k, maxed out his IRA, and he also invested a lot in a taxable investment account that allowed him to bridge that gap from age 50 to age 60. Making sure you have money in different buckets with different tax treatment. It's not just about diversification, it's about tax diversification, having money in different types of accounts. That way you have a little bit more flexibility and freedom in retirement to be able to pull from certain things to make it more tax efficient income in retirement. So just being smart about making sure you put money in different buckets, making sure that you don't have that lifestyle creep and increase your lifestyle when you get raises and put extra money away. But also a simple thing to do, like if you can't do more than 5% in your 401k, just increase it by 1% a year. And eventually you'll be maxing out your 401k and you won't even miss it because it'll just naturally go along with your life and potential raises.
Mm-hmm.
Setting up automatic transfers, making sure that everything's automated, that money's going to your Roth and your 401k and your taxable account every month before you pay the bills. That whole pay yourself first mentality.
Really important. And that automated one, I would just speak to. It's such a minor discipline or setting, but
Yeah.
like the whole set it and forget it thing is so powerful because there's always going to be something that'll get in the way if you're left to just doing it on your own. But if it's just out, it's kind of like why an impound account sometimes works for people with mortgages, right? Like you don't get hit with that tax bill later. Every month you're just paying it and it's just set it and forget it. So take that to heart, guys, in listening. There's been a wealth of financial literacy shared here in this conversation. I encourage everyone to reconnect with Brian. You can find him on Instagram. He answers his own DMs, and he's an extremely genuine human being, a very real guy. And I'm sure he'd love to continue conversations around money with people. And also, I encourage everyone to get his book. If you're in our LFG Society, which a number of you are, but for those that are curious about it, it's our special online community that we have. It's open year round. We're going to get Brian to speak to our community and get his book for everybody who's our member. So I'll talk to you about that, Brian, now that I put you on the hook for it. But I asked this question at our Better Human project this last year, and I know we're going to see you there next year. And I ask it of certain guests, not every guest, but where it's appropriate. And you've lived a life where you've been served a lot of things that you didn't ask for, but you managed beautifully and really inspirationally to all of us, myself included, to turn that around and do something with it. And what you've taught your children, I'm sure people have told you this, but I'm just telling you this as someone who, just like you, loved and adored his dad. And my dad's health's not good now. We're kind of nearing, this later stage also. and I look back on things, but what you've taught your children and what you've shown them and the example that you've basically laid out for them by living your life and doing it and being so stoic and so resilient and so brave, but also vulnerable, Brian. Like, I don't know if your children could have gotten a better lesson. I really don't. And you're their hero. I mean, you're a hero of mine, honestly, and just in what
Thanks,
you've
man.
shared and to so many people. So I just want to tell you that, man, and honor you for that as a dad, and just I'm proud of you as a friend. I know your late father is extremely proud of you. I know he just passed, so my condolences to you, brother, and the kids and
Thank you.
your whole family. But I ask people, when you get to the end of your life, and there's everyone at your funeral, whether it's 5 people, 500 people, 5,000 people. Hopefully it's not many, because that means you lived a really, really long life and no one else is around anyways,
Right,
Brian.
right.
So I hope there's only maybe 10 people at your funeral.
Yeah.
But if there was one word you wanted them to remember, or say that his life was summed up in this one word, whatever comes to mind, no right or wrong answer, and your kids being there too, what would you want Brian's life to be identified as in one word?
It's tough to sum it up with one word. I actually just wrote a song called "What Did You Make of It?" And I think number one, just family. Family at the core, love, deep, hard love. But one word is that's a tough one, man. That's a great question, though. I commend you on asking that type of tough question. But for me, just that I lived a rich life. That I impacted people. I think impact probably would be the word.
Yeah, that's a great one for you. Without a doubt, man. You have impact on everyone you talk to. And you're only getting started, man. Like this, I know you're driven and fueled by so much of what has happened in life, and it doesn't hold you back, and you just kind of use it as an opportunity to give more, serve more, create more, impact more. And I think that's a perfect word for you. So, Brian, I really appreciate you giving us time today. This was an amazing conversation, man. I look forward to more in the future. And like I said, man, I'm really, really proud to know you, and call you a friend,
man.
Yeah. God
I
bless you,
appreciate
brother.
it. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Thanks for your time today.
All right. We'll see you.